Okay guys, revisiting the Pico Neo free link after a few days of having a play of it here. Going to be giving you a breakdown on how this is sort of comparing to Quest 2 in a few different ways and sort of my own spin on an early review, as there does seem to be a bit of misinformation out there, so just want to clear that up. The headset itself is different in every way regarding its casing, lenses, faceplate and head strap, some for better, some for worse. While it's using the same chip, RAM, storage and resolution panel as the Quest 2, that's pretty much where it stops. It is a standalone headset using inside-out tracking with 4 cameras, which I believe is still based upon the reference Qualcomm design, exactly like Quest 2. So ultimately, it looks similar at face value. Some of the stuff I'll cover has been learned along the way, some stuff I'm yet to learn, but I will be going deep into what I can with the current state of Pico's beta software. And yes, the software is beta and I will treat it as fairly as I can. Let's start with the most obvious thing you feel when you get these headsets out of the box, which is the weight and the comfort. Weight comparisons here are done with realistically what Quest 2 users will end up with. The Quest 2 does come with a soft strap which weighs less but is terrible with the front heavy headset. So comparisons are based on already upgraded Quest 2. I've had several head straps now from the Elite with battery, several Amazon things which were awful, even the Bobo M2 Halo design, which personally I don't like Halo designs just because of the trade-off in the wobble it gives you in fast head movements, especially with the sweet spots on a Quest 2. With that in mind, my Quest 2 is currently on a Kiwi Elite strap using a VR cover with the slim interface padding, and the weight difference itself in the cover is negligible, but the head strap does factor into these weights. So these pictures here, what you can see is the Quest 2 and the Pico on the set of scales in all their glory. So here's my Quest 2 headset measuring at 1.55 pounds or 0.7 kilograms against a Pico Neo free link at 1.4 pounds or 0.64 kilograms. Now, while this weight saving doesn't look like much, the key to how this translates onto your face is by nature of its weight distribution. The Pico Neo free link does not have its battery in the front of the headset like the Quest 2, which makes the Pico lighter on your face and then counteracts that safe weight, again, by the battery being at the rear. That weird strap going across the top doesn't actually touch your head. And yeah, don't cut that. The flexible rubber houses battery cable. It's a pretty smart move despite being a bit ugly, but in all honesty, it does mean at some point if you ever need to replace the head strap or you want to drill a mod into the sides of the existing head strap, there's no risk or hard repairs. For prolonged use, a lighter headset is always a huge bonus. That I didn't honestly expect buying this headset, and I do now seriously think it has the potential to replace my CV1. Covering the controllers briefly on the subject of weight, despite the Pico controllers having 2 AA batteries over the Quest 2's single AA, the weight difference isn't all that much. With the Picos at 0.7 pounds or 0.32 kilograms and the Quest 2 at 0.65 pounds or 0.3 kilograms. Both using the same rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, constant 1.5 volt batteries. I use these in all my VR controllers just for the battery life and reliability. The weight difference is completely negligible between the controllers and you really wouldn't feel any of that weight when playing. As for the buttons and the ports on the headset itself, whereas the Quest 2 has a single USB C on the left-hand side of the headset and its auxiliary port directly beside that, it only has a power button to the right-hand side and its volume rocker on the lower right-hand side. The Pico has a bit more going on. So with the Pico headset, the Type-C data and charge port is on the top left-hand side of the headset, with the auxiliary cable on the bottom right-hand side of the headset. There are 3 sets of buttons on the right-hand side, the top being a dedicated back button for the user interface, the same as you get on the controllers, the confirm button in the middle, and the lowest button is the Pico home button, which can be also made into a shortcut for double taps to start recording or screenshots. The star of the show here though is the dedicated display port connection on top of the headset, hidden under a rubber cover. There's a clip further along the cable that you can attach to the head strap that gives you some release slack to the connection and keeps it solid and out of the way. This connection can be physically screwed down on the headset to stop any port damage. Tripping over an Oculus Link cable is definitely not fun, and it also risks doing damage to the port and the cable. So while it may seem cumbersome to screw this connection down, it's absolutely for the best and it will give you the full PCVR, uncompressed visuals and no latency that is sorely missing on the Quest 2. DisplayPort and Steam VR. The GPU and CPU overhead in Steam VR is drastically reduced compared to Oculus Link, so not only do your games look better in the Pico, they run considerably better too. That said, there are some gotchas. First off, this headset is using NVAPI, which is the direct display mode for Steam VR, which means until Steam VR launches, nothing will appear in the headset. It will only be a black image, and Windows doesn't have any say in the matter because it can't see it as a connected display. This of course cuts down on resources, not having to go through Pico's software for the video driver like Oculus Link does, but it also means it's not as fluid switching between wired PCVR and standalone. With trying to go back to standalone right now is either causing frame time spikes or straight up Steam VR crashes, as essentially Steam VR is seeing the display has been disconnected. This of course could change as the software is beta, but right now there's something to be aware of. And right now, the DisplayPort feature has a pretty embarrassing bug, which even though it's a big one, is still leaving other reviewers impressed with the visuals, but obviously mentioning the distortion. The too long didn't read to this is the panel is reporting its resolution as portrait.
What? What the fuck?
Notice anything on those screenshots I posted a second ago? Here's the Pico again. While reviewers are saying the headset looks great, it's nowhere near its native resolution in SteamVR at 100%. So that screenshot is actually at 200%, and it's still not a perfect match to the Quest 2 native resolution per eye. That means, although it's surprisingly still sharper and cleaner than Oculus Link, even in its horrible state right now, everything required for lens correction is basing itself off that incorrect starting resolution. Stuff like the barrel distortion correction, FOV, and even the render world scale and IPD correction is completely off. While they may have adjusted whatever scaling issue was present before the beta release, it's still a complete mess. I wouldn't recommend using it on the DisplayPort cable until that's addressed, as it does cause eye discomfort and pupil swim where the render is off and it makes you go cross-eyed. Of course, this is all in beta and it can easily be addressed, but that is something you absolutely need to be aware of right now. I've certainly tried myself to correct anything I can on my end with all my tinkering, but it's just down to Pico to edit the panel's EDID information. It basically reports all the correct resolutions and frame rates to SteamVR, because at the minute it's just showing it as a portrait image. The other big gotcha here is just driving this thing for PC. While it is native DisplayPort cable and doesn't have the overhead like Link, the catch is 90Hz with the Pico requires DSC support from your GPU. In layman's terms, the RTX cards are fine, the older 10 series are not. So even the mighty 1080 Ti simply won't be able to use 90Hz with this cable due to its bandwidth requirements. The Quest Link has to do serious compression to go over a normal USB cable, and the maximum bitrate you can get from that is 500 megabytes. So you can compare the bandwidth requirements between 500 megabyte you get on Link to what DSC can actually push, and that should give you some idea on the clarity difference. So while this is one step forward for proper PCVR on a standalone headset, it is another leap back considering it's now limiting what hardware can actually use this headset. So if you're looking for 90Hz with the Pico, you would either need to stick to using its compressed wireless PCVR mode by the Pico software itself or the upcoming virtual desktop app, or have an existing or new GPU that supports DSC. So that's the biggest feature covered. It is unfortunately very much in a beta state, with the first major update from Pico due around mid-June, which is about 2 weeks from this recording, which in all fairness was when we were likely to actually get these headsets anyway. They did arrive much sooner than anticipated. With this being an early release, SteamVR is yet to correctly display the Pico controllers. Currently, the Pico software will let you choose between Oculus Touch or compatibility mode, which is the Vive ones. While this will let you play for the time being, the gyro point of the controllers is off, and as Steam is treating it as a ROM controller, there's nothing you can do to fix that. Again, this is going to be fixed, and I've already found the files needed, such as the controller models and input bindings, within the Pico driver files. It's just not being passed onto SteamVR as yet. Sound. So it sounds a bit of a mixed bag right now, and I don't want to say for sure because the software is still beta. The bass is lacking, but the volume does get stupidly loud. This could obviously be fixed with an equalizer, and it is in beta state, so it just needs Pico to address this before I can actually finally review the hardware on that side. The Pico's microphone, however, needs serious work. The microphone auto gain, noise removal and pop filtering is certainly not tuned in any way comparable to the Quest 2 right now.
Okay, we're in the Pico Neo Link. This is the main menu and the field of view in the main menu. I'm going to start the game up. There's going to be no loading screen in the recording, it'll just be black. But it really doesn't take too long to load.
Again, this is in beta and it can be improved, but right now that is shown as a weak point on this headset. For normal audio solutions, you do still have the 3.5mm audio jack, also digital output by Type-C, and any Bluetooth headphones seem to pair that I've tried. Anyone interested in modifying existing Quest 2 audio solutions for the head strap, I've measured a head strap at 29.6mm vertically and 1.5mm thick. It's not as big as the Elite strap, and it's a little bit taller than the Kiwi design head strap that I have here. Controllers and tracking. So right now, even considering this as a beta, I have absolutely no complaints with the tracking in Standalone. If both headsets fit and felt the same, you could put me into either headset and I wouldn't be able to tell you which one I'm playing. They both return tracking quickly, I've not had any drift issues, and even being an idiot with the occlusion, it handles it much the same as Quest 2. Personally, I've grown to really like holding these controllers. They feel much better to hold in my big hands due to the longer handle. With the Quest 2 controllers and the CV1 controllers for myself, when I'm getting a bit too enthusiastic with my throws, the smaller area inside my hand actually lets it move away when I release the triggers. This is of course personally down to me and my hand size, but I'm not finding this issue on the Picos. Quest 2 controls are obviously legendary, right up there against the CV1, and they're certainly as tough as them. The Pico controllers really can't compete. They have bendy plastics and creaks if you mishandle them, but they are functional nonetheless. The Pico has extra buttons on the controllers compared to Quest. Right now it has a dedicated back button for navigation menus on both left and right controllers. Porting to the Pico shouldn't be too troublesome as it is near identical hardware and button layouts. But just an example of it being in a beta, the pausing on Quest 2 is done by holding the Oculus button in Racket and X, whereas doing the same thing in the Pico will recenter you but not pause. Seemingly this just seems like an afterthought with the port, given we have 2 more buttons there but not being used. Given time and of course more options through software, those 2 buttons could be very handy for games. There is already a one-up here for the Pico though. You can configure what a double tap of the Pico button does on each controller. Right now you have options to start recording or take screenshots or do nothing at all. This is incredibly handy trying to make captures without ruining the flow of your game. The Pico button acts the same way as the Oculus. If you hold it down, it will recenter your vision, but it does much more than that. With the Oculus Quest 2, pressing once will just hide or display the menu or library screen and that's it. Holding it recenters. It doesn't get much more thought in the home environment. In game with the Oculus, you need to hold the button if you've configured it that way to pause, and you practically get the standard UI. You can even view your library while pausing game, packed with options, but it is very cluttered. With the Pico button, pressing once will bring up a quick settings menu where you can screencast, screenshot, screen record, free up memory. Presumably that's like a task killer for Android, but there is no library or store or anything like that while in game, just a simple quick controls. You also have quick access to see the time and battery life, adjust the volume, brightness, reset your play space, view notifications, or even restart and shut down from that options there. Or you can jump straight to whatever setting page you want for wireless LAN, Bluetooth, display and general settings. This means if you're using a headset in your sideloading environment, you have access to these features, whereas Quest 2 you do not. Screen. You know what the deal is here. It's the same resolution panel as Quest 2. I don't know if it's exactly the same panel due to the DisplayPort feature. The Pico headset is sharp, it has very little screen door, and it's not something I could possibly show through camera. The only difference I can see thus far is due to the lenses on the Pico, and also when you sideload an Android app onto the Pico, it's able to display the full RGB luminous levels, whereas the same app on Quest 2 will only display limited RGB luminous levels. So if you're in the sideloaded environment, the emulators and HDMI captures look better and more vibrant on the Pico compared to Quest 2. Both headsets support 72Hz, 90Hz and 120Hz, but due to the beta, 120Hz is yet to be unlocked. Lenses. The IPD adjustment on this headset is the same three-way selection as Quest 2. I'll display the figures on screen now for you. The lenses are much bigger than that on the Quest 2. The profile is round compared to the sort of epitrochoid shape that the Quest 2 used. In simple terms, the radius of visible lens you get on the Quest 2 is less, demonstrated with Quest 2 VR optician lenses being too small to clip over these Pico lenses. The Pico lenses, however, are similar size to a CV1, as I'm able to temporarily fashion the CV1 VR optician lenses between the silicon lens surround on the Pico. This is far from perfect, but a nice workaround until the lenses become available for this headset. Now, as someone who uses the CV1 over Quest 2 on the PC, I can honestly tell you it's refreshing not feeling like I'm boxed in on Standalone anymore, as both my Oculus Go and the Quest 2 have the same lenses and it was a notable step back. The FOV I'm not going to compare yet due to the Pico's beta situation and a distortion profile that still needs to be corrected, but the Pico is certainly not going to be any worse than Quest 2. I really don't know where the info stemmed from, but these are absolutely not the same as Quest 2 lenses in both size, shape and even to look through. The lenses themselves are actually pretty sweet, and that's coming from someone who praises Oculus optics. However, Oculus have stuck with their lenses for some time now, and the ones in the Quest 2 date all the way back to the Rift S and Oculus Go. While they are infinitely better for God rays coming from my CV1, there was a trade-off in overall feel coming from the CV1, and as Pico is showing right now, Oculus really need to step up their game. Viewing through the Pico lenses and the Quest 2 is very different. Now, it's not something I'm able to show on camera, but edge-to-edge clarity is much better on the Pico. With the Oculus lenses, the sharpness would tail off as you approach the edge. This is typical of Fresnel lenses. The Pico has a one-up here as the text does remain sharper past the point of the Quest 2. So while the Pico here is the one-up on a binocular effect, the FOV I can't compare until I can personally distance myself equally to the lenses as I can the Quest 2, and Pico fixed the image distortion in their software. The sweet spot on the lenses could very well be bigger here, but it isn't as quick and obvious to find as a Quest 2. It doesn't blur everything so much compared to Quest 2, letting you know you're out of it. Instead, it will still be clear, but start to distort. Because the lenses are much bigger, they do seem to need you to move that much more to get into the sweet spot. Rather than complaints of blurriness from people not fitting the headset correctly, you will have complaints of distortion. For me with my face shape, the sweet spot is moving the headset lower down, bringing my eyes higher up for the lenses. Honestly, when you're in the sweet spot, it is very, very clear. Faceplates. As shown in the previous video, the faceplates across any of my headsets are not the same. The Pico headset has a far wider open faceplate, which means there's absolutely no problem fitting glasses. The way the headset also pivots up in the very front of the headset means it's really easy to take on and off without disturbing your glasses. With a Quest 2, unless you've changed to a sort of head strap that does this, it makes wearing glasses an absolute pain. Even aftermarket straps will only pivot up so far past the end of the arms, not right at the front of the headset like the Pico. But as with all VR headsets, the fitment entirely depends on your face shape, And for me, I'm not close enough to the lenses on the Pico with the standard faceplate. It's a very thick and firm padding. Comfortable enough for me, not scratchy or irritating, but I just can't get close enough. The Pico headset really needs to be positioned correctly to get into the sweet spot, and a chunky top to the faceplate keeps me from getting the headset exactly where I want on a loose, comfy fit. Nothing that can't be addressed with an aftermarket faceplate. Cooling. Unlike a Quest 2, the Pico has a vented front, what seems like a much more powerful fan. This is audible at very low volume and can seriously kick out some heat. The fan profile is okay. For movies and sideloading, it's barely an issue and you can hardly hear it. There will be instances of heavy load like downloading or loading games where it'll spin up briefly, but hey, heat's better out than in, right? Which then creates a new question. Is the Quest 2 underclocking to keep the temperatures under control? Or is Pico running flat out or overclocking? Will battery life suffer from an active fan? Or will games run better having such active cooling? I don't know yet, but it's another reason why I think this headset has potential. It makes no apologies for having such cooling, which means at some point we should be able to expect pushing the chip harder than what Quest 2 is limited to, just by cooling alone. Passthrough. Having both headsets in pass-through mode, the Pico easily wins for eye comfort and usability. The contrast is higher and it doesn't have that blinding brightness to everything like the Quest 2 does. While video grain noise is still present, it's way less than the Quest 2, which honestly surprises me given Facebook's push for making it a use case in productivity apps. You'd much rather want to use the pass-through in the Pico. On the subject of pass-through, the Pico can do what Oculus can't, which is record your pass-through in game recordings when you exit the Guardian boundary. This is pretty sweet and also pretty scary depending on which way you look at it. Depends if you're a content creator who can use that transition to your advantage, or one that values the privacy of the surroundings should they step out of the Guardian. Bluetooth and wireless. Wi-Fi settings on the Pico are exactly the same as a Quest 2. You can connect to all sorts of networks and there's nothing new to report there. The Bluetooth support, however, is a little better. It still supports Bluetooth audio and it's connected to every headphone that I've tried, but the Bluetooth controller support is much better. With the Pico, not only is it detecting anything that's got an Android driver over Bluetooth, but it actually passes those inputs through to the app that you're trying to control. So stuff like game emulators, where you couldn't use the controls on Quest 2, work absolutely fine on the Pico. Gameplay recording. I've started recording on both the Pico and the Quest 2 in the same game, and I'm going to just put the video up here and let you decide.
Showtime!
Wireless PCVR. Now, considering Pico is in a beta, I can only say that AirLink is obviously going to be much more stable and performative than the Pico alternative. That much should be obvious. It works, but it's not perfect. Virtual Desktop is coming to the Pico Neo free link, and maybe then we'll see some improvements if a developer is able to tap into any more of the resources on the Pico, given that Facebook's version of Android is fairly locked down. That is coming, but again, this software is beta, and it's not really fair to do a comparison right now. Sideloading. I've done a previous video on this. It really is super simple. You get whatever APK you want, connect it USB to the headset and drag files onto it. That's it. No click and allow inside the headset like an Oculus Quest 2, no sign up for a developer account or setting up ABD, side quest, anything like that is simply drag and drop. So inside the Pico headset, you have a dedicated APK section in the file manager. Doesn't matter where you put the APKs, it automatically detects them and you simply click install. Unlike the Quest 2, the environment you get for normal Android apps is fully customizable. So like the Quest 2, you can reshape the screen, but unlike the Quest 2, you can also distance the screen away from you. You can change if the lights are on or off, basically getting rid of the surrounding environment, much like you can in Quest 2. And you also have customizable environments that you can change, such as daylight or nighttime, and 2 different environments. Everything I've thrown at it just works. Controllers get passed through to the apps correctly. You can play cloud PC gaming, console streaming just fine, or while running another sideloaded app in the background. For example, like shown in the last video, Discord voice chat can be run as a background app. It's just awesome. USB on the go support. Now, USB on the go, or OTG, this is something most people probably never knew existed in any headset, and that's the ability to plug in a USB device. This can be taken for granted, but the ease of sideloading combined with a native file manager support for external devices on the Pico make the Pico Neo free link an absolute dream for tinkering and media consumption. I have a huge list of the devices that I've tried, and absolutely everything bar a simple mouse worked. The mouse not working is just down to the OS not having an actual cursor, and again, this is a beta. It could be patched in, but it's funny how it can go to extremes of stuff people would never think to plug in, and only to find a mouse not work. For the storage, every format I tried was supported. NTFS support was already enabled, so it's easy to add your huge library of emulated games without ever transferring a file to the headset. I found that the Pico and the Quest 2 both support PD charging with the right OTG adapter, which I'll leave in the link in the description. No affiliate links on my channel. But given the nature of how sideloaded apps can fully see and control USB devices on the Pico, unlike the Quest 2, this is a clear win for the Pico. Media. The video player in Quest is lacking. Not only are certain file types not supported, but even the ones at launch don't play particularly well, or deaften with awful noise when it can't play the audio type. I'm going to go to my file manager, and I'm going to play the trailer, 3D trailer.
No.
There are other video player apps for the Quest, even though Oculus TV is where they want you to play your files. I'll be using a new Avatar 2 3D trailer linked in the description for comparison. On Quest 2, all but one of its video player applications have trouble playing the 3D Avatar trailer smoothly without judder. That's pretty poor. The app Skybox, that did okay. Oculus TV can play the file, but the screen option is poor. Yes, you can resize the window left and right, but you cannot distance it from you, making a big screen absolutely useless. It also supports lights on or off, but not other options available like Pico. With the Pico, however, everything is fine. I don't need a new video player to fix playback. It's played every format I've thrown at both video and audio. The native video player gives you a load of options and a few environments to play them in. It's just as you expect, it just works. The lenses on the Pico, also having better edge-to-edge clarity, also make watching movies on a big screen much nicer experience. No more having to make a small screen so it's not blurry around the corners for your Quest 2. Spatial audio is also implemented, but it is an option that you can turn off. Media playback is a straight win for the Pico. They also mention it happily play off your USB sticks, or also a network stream, or even imported URL lists, all from the native app inside the headset. Standalone game library. Now this is where the Quest reigns supreme. All that money Facebook chucks around is clearly going to net them a stronger library of exclusives. They don't expect to see Beat Saber, Resident Evil or San Andreas on the Pico anytime soon, although I don't think that's going to stop modders trying to port them. The game library is already just fine, especially for a beta release headset that's arrived early. Games play exactly the same as they would on Quest 2, so it really makes no difference what headset you use. Until I start playing some more games online, I won't be able to tell you about the player base and the etiquette of the players, but this is a beta and it's early days, so that's expected. The Pico supports OpenXR and that is encouraged. Developers will need to use the Pico SDK to transfer the controllers and inputs, but otherwise, the hardware they're targeting for chips, RAM and speed, it should all be the same. It'll just be a matter of time before we start seeing games ported from Oculus onto the Pico. Now, I'm no developer, so the complexity behind converting anything that's locked behind the Quest API that's not already OpenXR could quite clearly be more challenging. Despite the Pico headset being in the hands of a few for only a week as of this recording, Labosh, the mighty dev who helped make Dr. Beef make his recent QUAKE 3 on Quest port OpenXR, has already successfully, single-handedly and officially ported Dr. Beef's QUAKE 3 build from the Quest to the Pico Neo 3 link. Well, that's already impressive enough. It's even more impressive when you know that Lubos doesn't actually have a Pico headset. Using nothing more than log files from Discord user MoldyK and a few rambling in-headset recordings from myself for each iteration of the build, we now have a playable version of QUAKE 3 VR on the Pico Neo 3 link. This is truly an amazing feat, especially this early into the headset's release. The groundwork has now been laid down, and Labosh has left his work entirely open source. If you'd like to check out the build or continue work on the port, check the video description for links to both the build and its GitHub. Closing thoughts. The Pico Neo 3 Link is a headset of potential, jumping over the proverbial fence into Europe and announcing its presence, offering great value to people who know about the beta. It's absolutely not for everyone right now. If this was sold in Argos or Walmart with no context as to its software state, a lot of people would rightfully be unhappy, especially if coming from an Oculus headset. That said, the hardware itself is solid, and despite the flaws here and there within the beta software, it is usable. So much so that I've been hooked unlike any headset I've had since originally getting my CV1 back on release. Pico are aware of the issues and active on their Discord support channel, with users relaying feedback and reporting bugs just as the beta should be. Everything of concern is addressable either by simply waiting on the software updates or looking to aftermarket parts in time for VR covers and audio solutions, just as it was on Quest 2. Competition in the standalone space is extremely welcome, and having a standalone headset that is this close to the behemoth that is Oculus, who until now were the monopoly in the affordable consumer standalone VR space, it's extremely encouraging to see strong competition. For me as a person who likes to tinker with my devices, Android actually behaving like Android is long overdue. Maybe it's just me, but I just like doing whatever I want with my devices. Not being tied to any social media accounts or needing an account at all to use a headset is just a bonus. Having known all the Oculus headsets up to this point, a non-Oculus headset has never really interested me as much as the Pico Neo 3 Link. It's the same great specs as Quest 2, but has a proper PCVR connection, and to me that's all the Quest 2 ever needed. With how surprisingly open the Pico headset is, there's no reason for me to keep my Oculus Go for sideloading anymore, and given that SteamVR gets the appropriate fix and controller models from Pico's side, the weight, performance and visual clarity of the Pico headset can certainly finally replace my CV1. So that's two headsets taken care of with just a one Pico Neo 3 Link. Can it replace my Quest 2 though? Sadly, no, not entirely. However, in time, I'm sure it can. Given my library on Quest is fairly vast and it having games exclusive to it, it wouldn't make sense for me, being I'm already invested into their ecosystem. For new to VR users though, there is another option now in the same standalone experience and ease of entry that Quest 2 already offered. Right now, you have to accept that it is in beta. Given time, once the fix is done however, I truly believe this will be the best value headset I can think of that's ever been released. The clarity and performance on SteamVR is only rivaled by HP Reverb G2, which is £200 more, and that's just a PCVR headset, and one that has even worse tracking than this Pico. This headset released to me is like VR's moment of Xbox jumping into ring against PlayStation back in the early 2000s for the consoles. It seems stupid for Xbox to do that at the time, given Sony's massive head start and success with the consoles, but look where they are now. VR needs competition like this, and Pico are only just getting started. And if you're buying a Pico Neo free link, you're along for the ride. Warts and all.